I'm Shahar Azani with you for a special In the News, Israel at War. Hamas terrorists' barbaric attack over the weekend on Israel resulted in hundreds of people murdered, thousands injured, and more kidnapped back, taken as hostages into the Gaza Strip. With me, all the way from Israel, is IDF spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus to share his perspective on what things look like on the ground in Israel. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Shahar.
First of all, I want to ask you, how are you feeling? What's the mood in the country at this point?
It is a second day. We're about 40 hours into the fighting, maybe a little bit more than that. We are burying our dead. We are counting the corpses of butchered Israeli civilians in Israel. And we are simultaneously fighting in communities inside Israel, trying to get our hands on the last Hamas terrorists that are still inside Israel. We will do that. That'll be completed, and hopefully in a few hours, when the dawn breaks, we'll be able to declare that all of southern Israel is clear of Hamas terrorists after many, many hours of waiting and fighting.
How many?
We are also simultaneously striking Hamas targets in Gaza. As we speak, the Israeli Air Force is carrying out yet another sortie, striking military targets all over the Gaza Strip, which I think is the first stage, the warm-up stage of the implementation by the IDF of what we have been tasked to do by the Israeli government, and that is to make sure that Hamas does not have, or at the end of this war, Hamas will not have any military capacity to threaten Israeli civilians, and that also Hamas will not have any ability to rule or govern the Gaza Strip. So that is still in the works. We are still in the process of clearing up southern Israel, and then we will focus all of our attention on setting things straight with Hamas in Gaza.
You know, Jonathan, how many Hamas terrorists infiltrated in Israel on that horrid morning? Is there an estimate? Do you know?
There is an estimate, and it'll blow your mind once I say it, because I've said it a few times today, and I still can't believe it. We assess that there were around 1,000 Hamas terrorists who were able to get in to Israel, and they are the ones who butchered, executed, and then took hostage all of the Israeli civilians and also soldiers that we are aware of. The numbers: 700 killed Israelis, soldiers and civilians, most of them, the overwhelming majority, civilians, and more than 2,100 Israelis have been wounded. For those in America who may not have seen the news yet, the biggest mass casualty event was a music festival that was celebrated with hundreds of young Israelis out in a forest area, close to a kibbutz called Re'im, and we have found a concentration of 260 bodies of young Israelis at that location. So not only is the 7th of October the darkest day in Israel's history, the day that most Israelis died from anything, nothing even comes close in our history, but also this event, the massacre at the music festival, is also a singular event that has no precedence in Israeli society. So there are many, many very difficult experiences. I would say that Israeli society, the men and women of the people of Israel, are suffering from these atrocities. People all over Israel are affected, and there are very, very hard feelings. However, there are also many beautiful displays of brotherhood, of love and compassion and support, of bravery and courage, and incredible resolve, especially by civilians who defended themselves alone for hours on end in various communities around the Gaza Strip. And there are chilling stories of Israelis who were able to survive thanks to their resourcefulness and being able to fight off tens of Hamas terrorists in their houses. And you know, we all know when Israelis and Jews love to argue, but the situation is very dire. People understand that, and all the political nonsense and squabbling is cast aside, and now Israelis are coming together, focusing on what needs to be done. What needs to be done is to give the IDF the ability, backing, and support in order to focus on its tasks. And it is clear that this is not another round of escalation like you and I and many others have seen many in the past. That's not it. This is a totally different situation, and we will respond to it totally differently. And the end of this war will be a fundamental change to the security environment for all Israelis living in southern Israel.
You know, which is the hope of many. 1,000, that's an incredible number. You know, it reminds me of the late Prime Minister Golda Meir, who once said that if Israel lay down its weapon, there will be a massacre, but if Arabs do so, there will be peace. And this is something that we tend to just say and, you know, feel it, but never really imagine or envision that something like this would happen. Seeing some of the atrocities, Jonathan, online, those horrid videos of women, children, truly unprecedented cruelty. How did that impact Israeli public opinion?
You know, we're at an age, a situation where we are bombarded with information, overwhelmed, television, social media, phones. It is overwhelming, and the gruesomeness of the content that Hamas are proudly displaying, right? Dragging the mutilated bodies of Israeli women in their underwear in the streets of Gaza, or parading Israeli men or soldiers in the street, and bullying 7-year-old children by Palestinians, just to name a few things, and those are not the most gruesome examples. On one hand, it's chilling, saddening, and it's really could be seen as demoralizing for many Israelis. But on the other hand, I think it also adds to the resolve and the understanding of Israelis that this needs to change. This situation needs to change, and Israel cannot allow this vile Palestinian and Iranian-funded terror organization to continue to exist after what it has done.
How do you feel the current campaign is different from the past rounds of confrontation with this terrorist organization?
That I'll be able to answer in a few days. So far, we've struck a lot of targets, and there's quite a lot of damage to Hamas's infrastructure, but we are nowhere near we've only just started, and we're nowhere near the end state of this war. And at the end of it, we'll be able to say how different it was. It's clear that our aims are totally different from all of those campaigns that started with rocket fire from Gaza, Air Force response by the IDF, and then some half-baked ceasefire made by Egypt or someone else, and then continue a few months after. That is not the situation today. We're in a totally different ballgame, and I hope that our government will seize on the opportunity and fundamentally change the situation for the better, first and foremost for Israeli civilians living in southern Israel, and also for those who care, it'll be better for Palestinians to rid Gaza of that cancer called Hamas will bring nothing but good to the region.
That's absolutely correct. Jonathan, you've had a lot of international experience, both in this position, being a spokesperson of the Israel Defense Forces, but also here in New York, serving at the United Nations and interacting with the world. Describe to us, I'm sure you have friends everywhere. What kind of responses are you getting from the international community, from members of the family of nations, from people from outside of Israel? What do they tell you?
You know, there's a certain rhythm to these events when Israel defends itself. Usually, if it starts with Israeli casualties, then there's a very short, narrow window where the world says, well, Israel has the right to defend itself, and we stand by Israel, which is great. However, we have learned all too many times that support to Israel has some tendency to erode once we really start defending ourselves and making our enemies pay a price. I hope that this time will be different, and I hope that this time, when images, difficult images, will be coming out of Gaza, people around the world, at the United Nations, in the capitals of the world, will remember how this war started, why it started, and then remember that the responsibility for all the carnage lies on one organization only, and that is Hamas.
And do you feel that there is such understanding at the moment from your colleagues that you speak to from overseas?
I'd say that we're in a stage where there is still, I'd say, a significant level of support for Israel's right to defend itself. And I hope that this time, leaders around the world and elected officials will have the moral and intellectual courage to keep it that way.
Right. I'll ask you one last question. I'm hearing, a lot of people who reach out from various places all across the US and in many other places and are asking, what can we do to support you? What can we do to support the state of Israel, to support the IDF in this most dire and dark of Israel's hours? Is there anything that you can say, suggest, or share from Israel to all of those who truly care?
Well, for those who believe in praying, then that's one way to do it. Sending love and strength is something I believe in, and I think that it will be it materializes. But on a more material level, I think that the most important thing are two. One is to directly reach out to legislators and elected officials in power, make sure that these elected officials have their priorities straight, and that support for Israel is indeed ironclad and unwavering. And when Israel will need to replenish its Iron Dome interceptors and the munitions that Israel needs in order to continue to defend itself, they will indeed be delivered swiftly. And secondly, to fight the good battle on behalf of the Jewish state and the Jewish people in international media and in American media, to stand up for what's right, to be brave in the face of thinly disguised anti-Semitism and BDS support, and to continue to stand up against the libels and the false accusations that always are thrust upon Israel. Those are the two things that I think people abroad can do. And there are many examples of people who do exactly that, and they make a difference. And to them, I say, Toda Rabba.
Jonathan, coming from you as someone that we've all been following and watching on international media, I'd like to thank you for your incredible voice that provides comfort for so many here who feel that they're not voiceless, thanks to listening to you on American media and international media. Just know that we are all with you here at JBS and the entire American, Israeli, Jewish community. And like you said, any human being who believes in justice and truth must stand against this barbaric war against civilization. So Toda Rabba, all the way from New York to you there in Israel. Stay strong, and we will do more than pray for you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Well said. Thank you.
And to all of you, our viewers, thank you very much for watching. We will continue to report on the escalation in Israel and in the hope of a close defeat of Hamas by the state of Israel as it continues to battle this unprovoked and unbelievable evil in the Gaza Strip. Thank you all for watching, and see you all soon as we continue to pray for Israel.